Well, we have another report from Janelle Ost, who covered the Women in Agribusiness Convention in New Orleans, talking about a subject that I've discussed many times on Samuelson Says, the challenge of transportation.
It's no surprise to those involved in agriculture that we need to improve our transportation and infrastructure to gain much-needed efficiencies. However, the question is, how do we prioritize the needs and where do we focus investments? We spoke with industry leaders attending the Women in Agribusiness Summit held recently in New Orleans to hear their thoughts on where to focus those efforts.
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges is probably in our locks and dams system and the barge. There isn't any money allocated, although they've promised for that money. So far, Congress hasn't passed that. There's problems in dredging. There's problems with our depth at the U.S. Gulf on the vessels. At this point, Panama Canal is going to open in 2013. Bigger vessels are going to come through the canal than what we can actually load at the Gulf with water depth. So we're going to leave vessels shy of their full capacity, which means we're not taking as best advantage of those vessels.
Research conducted by the United Soybean Board found that over half of the inland marine transportation structures are 50 years old, and 36% have been around more than 70 years. The aging system, as well as increased hours and outages, are a major concern.
Transportation infrastructure and the need for increased funding is a priority issue for the United Soybean Board and the Checkoff. The Checkoff funded a study that really took it all the way from the soybean being on the farm all the way to the market and tracked that progress through, whatever parts of the transportation infrastructure it needs. One of the highlights, of course, is that our lock and dam system is very old and aging, and the condition of that is deteriorating. We export around 56% of the crop grown in the United States, and of that, about 60% of those actually travel through the Mississippi River lock and dam and through to the port system. So it's essential to maintain competitiveness, to really understand what's going on and to be able to address those issues.
So now the question remains, who invests in the needed repairs and improvements?
That's a tough one to answer. But at this point, I see it's probably going to have to be privates as well as government getting together to see, what can be established and what can be repaired. Our locks and dam system was built back in the 50s mostly. It was supposed to last to the 80s. It's now the 2010s, and it needs a lot of help. Where they go with that is $2.21 billion, I believe, is what they're expecting over the next 20 years to be invested. Coming up with that might be a little more difficult.
As both Moses and Kummer shared, there is a lot of work to be done to increase efficiencies with our current transportation system. With so many entities involved in the decision-making, the challenge may lie in figuring out priorities and working together. However, investing in rebuilding will have lasting benefits throughout the ag value chain. Reporting from New Orleans, I'm Janelle Ost for This Week in Agribusiness.